unless you've seen somebody in active dying before, if you experience that for the first time with going in like blind, it's not a comfortable thing to watch. There are noises, there are smells, there are things going on, and it's stressful.
Once you do it a lot or you do it enough, does it change how you feel about the process or like death itself?
Unless you've experienced death in some capacity, you really take for granted what life is.
I'm very curious. So when you are in a program with a client, how does religion and their cultures and traditions play into the process?
Making sure that this person is getting absolutely everything that they need at their end of life. So even something as simple as pain management, educating around the dying process is kind of like my favorite thing.
Hello. Hi, Jess.
I keep wanting to say something inappropriate every time it cuts it out.
Same. But yeah, to everybody who's listening right now, again, my name's Jack Cat, creator of Serial Killer, and we are joined by our co-host today, Jess.
Jessica Shoop, the crazy lady.
The
crazy lady on TikTok that has no niche.
She's TikTok famous no matter what she says.
No.
But
I'm TikTok tolerable. That's what it is.
But we are also joined with a very special guest today, and we dedicated this whole episode to her because I'm super sure everybody would like to know and would be super interested to get, and you have a lot more questions in your mind. We have Brianna, who is a death doula. And hi, Brianna.
Hi.
Welcome to Murder Buffet.
I'm here.
And by the way, where are you at again?
Where am I located?
Yeah.
I'm in Edmonton, Canada. So Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Oilers, go team.
I totally forgot that part.
Yeah.
I thought you were in wow. Oh, so you are our first international guest.
Wow, I have so many guests. I feel so special.
Yeah, you are
special.
71st.
We allocated this whole episode just to talk to you.
Oh, boy.
Jack and I had our own separate conversations, and I was like, I have questions for the death doula. We need
no pressure. But let us start. So to anybody who's listening or tuning in, I'm sure they have questions, but would you be able to let us know what a death doula is?
Yeah, so this is actually a really complicated question, and I think when you ask each different death doula, you're going to get a slightly different answer. The easy answer is just advocacy for dignity in death. So really making sure that whoever you're supporting, the dying person, feels that their voice is being heard, that they're able to die in the way that they would like to die, and really bringing that dignity component. That's the easy, short answer. But within that, it's really just finding the holes in the medical system and trying to fill those holes. So not necessarily from a medical standpoint, because they got that figured out, but in terms of being able to support with what does your death look like to you, and how can I support that? What brings you comfort? How can I put the power back in your hands so that you're making the right choices? Because I think so often we get lost in that, this is just how it is, and the medical system has decided this is what I can have and what I can't have, and we just take it, and that's it. And the same goes for the funeral industry, where it's gotten to a point where people are like, oh, I have to get embalmed and I have to buy the big casket and but there's alternative options, especially now. So just making sure that everybody knows what their options are, the choices that they're making are fully informed, and that they have that voice, that they feel like they can, especially you're not feeling well, you don't want to have to be, constantly sticking up for yourself. So bringing on that extra voice to just be able to do it for you, especially when you're not wanting to do it necessarily for yourself, it's just that added kind of support.
So is this so it is a kind of advocacy when somebody is going through if they're in their deathbed, and is this usually for people that are alone, or how would you deal with their families?
So this is
If
where
they
it gets kind of tricky and hard to pin down. So it could be anything from supporting family members. We can be brought in anywhere from even before somebody has a terminal diagnosis and just wants to create a death plan or have a conversation about death, or wants to know what their options are. So ideally we come in before that terminal diagnosis even happened, because then we have the time to really flesh out what it is they're looking for and get that, because it can be very overwhelming, especially like you get a terminal diagnosis, you now have to deal with that terminal diagnosis, and you really don't know how much time you have,
Right.
realistically. So you're already emotionally at such a high level, your family is emotionally at such a high level, it gets really difficult to make these decisions and have these plans. And that's part of what we navigate, because most of the clients right now that we get are, because most people don't know what we are until they've gotten their diagnosis, they want to know their options,
Right.
death doula pops up and they're like, oh, what's this? And then they go down that rabbit hole. So now it's getting the word out there to get people in the door before they even have it.
So this is the kind. So this is like almost kind of a process or a program that would last for weeks or months, is what I'm understanding.
Oh yeah, like we can come in, like you can have clients for like years, really.
Oh.
It's because, again, dying is not on a schedule. So we don't have, you could get a terminal diagnosis and be around for 5 years or 6 years or 10 years or 25 years. You don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could be 10 minutes. You never really know. So ideally, the longer you have with your client, the more time you have to build that relationship, you can really get into those nitty-gritty questions. Everybody gets more comfortable and you can really do the job effectively. Without that, without making it more difficult on top of having to already process everything else.
And because this is so new to me, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about it, because I feel like it just makes sense. Like a lot of people can benefit from having guidance and an advocate by their side when they're going through something. I mean, I don't want to say it's tragic. That's the purpose of what you're doing, is to make it more peaceful, right? Or like make it at least tolerable.
It's really bringing comfort to everybody involved, whether physically, emotionally, any way that we can help the process. And I think in North America specifically, so like a death doula is a brand new thing. This is really, we've really only been around since about the 1960s, I want to say.
So it is. Oh, I mean, it is young compared to the medical industry, but relatively new.
Very.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I believe the term was coined in the 1960s, around that time. But so it's a very new, and kind of in response to the medicalization of death, and a lot of people wanting to move away from the white sterilized medical room type of death into a more bring it back into the home, have the family, that kind of more of a holistic death, instead of just I'm tubes and things like that.
Right.
How did you, I kind of have a two-part question. How did you get into this kind of industry? And then how do you feel your relationship with the idea of death? Has it changed with being in a field where you deal with death all the time? Are you more scared of it, or are you less scared of it? What's your relationship with death now as opposed to before starting this job?
So I have always been that person who has been interested in death. And I'm interested in things that are strange and unusual, because I myself am strange and unusual.
This is why we're all talking.
They have the second one is coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I know.
So excited. So it's always fascinated me. So when I was much younger, my grandfather on my mother's side had passed away before I was born. So I spent a lot of time in cemeteries. And often my mom and my grandmother would go and take care of the plot, and I would just wander. And I just thought it was fascinating, these gorgeous engraved stones that memorialize somebody's life. And so I've always just loved cemeteries. I've just been so drawn to them, and I just find them so beautiful. So that was that's where it all kind of started. And then it kind of got more intense. So I have a bachelor's in psychology. So then I got more interested in like humanity and like the culture end of things, and like how the view of death has progressed through society and how that's kind of shifted and changed. Became super obsessed with the Victorians for a hot minute, just because, like, I'm sorry, like hair jewelry is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's the way that they memorialize their deaths. So like death portraits, death jewelry, parlors literally were made to house the dead. Like the parlor was there for when you died, and then your family would come over, and that's where everybody did the things. So, and then that got me wondering, like, okay, where's the disconnect now? Because I feel like they had such a different relationship with death, and it was such a different attitude towards it, and there was so much more like reverence and so much more thought put towards their dead. And that again, it just like fascinated me. So then I started looking up Caitlin Doughty, and if you are into death, look up Caitlin Doughty. She is she's amazing. I'm in love with her. I went down you'll rabbit hole because she's fascinating to listen to and hilarious and great. And she's actually the reason that I found out that death doula was even a thing. She did a YouTube video on it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that we could just like
be counselors for people that die.
So yeah, I was really, and then the like little earworm went into my brain, and I just like never forgot about it. And it was just one of those things where like I kept thinking about it, and then I started looking up like, okay, what can I do, and how do you get into it? And so because it's such a new profession, at least in Canada, I don't know about the States, but I know for sure in Canada, it's not yet a regulated role. Oh, hi, Kitty.
I know. Sorry, buddy. He's trying to be so sly.
Slow. If I go so slow, she won't see me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just one of those. I started looking into it. So we have an end of life doula association in Canada, and I believe the plan is to eventually get it to a regulated role, obviously, because you're dealing in such a specific and high emotionally charged situation, and that needs training. So I think eventually the plan is to have it more regulated. So I figured this was my time to kind of like get my certificate, do all of the things I needed to do before that kind of came in, and then I fell in love.
You're gonna end up being my Caitlin, because as soon as he was like, we're gonna have a death doula on the show, I didn't know what it was, and then my boyfriend's niece was like, do they talk to the dead? And I was like, I don't think so. And I started looking things up, and I started falling down the rabbit hole, and I fell down it so much because I started like thinking like how like what you do I think is so beautiful, and it's so like you're counseling somebody that's like on the end of their life. Death is going to come for us all. It's inevitable. And I wondered like how, like, given somebody's mental state, I know somebody could really thrive in that environment, facing that inevitable truth every single day, and other people, it may just break them. And I kind of leaned on the side of like, maybe I do want to venture down this rabbit hole. And I'm in the US, so I started looking at programs here, and I found one that I think I might join, and it's because of you.
We need so many more. We need so many more death doulas. But I think for me, the way that I pose it to myself is, yes, death is sad and it's finite, and there's no coming back from it, and that's sad. But if I can be there to make somebody's last moments on this earth better, what they want, if I can give them what they are hoping for at the end of life, and transition them into whatever is after, in the most positive way possible, then that's how I see it, is that I'm a blip in their little timeline, and I'm just helping them. So not everybody, so there's death doulas, end of life care doulas, end of life guides. There's different terms for the same role. So we all do the same thing. It's just a matter of what you want to call yourself.
I think this should be everywhere. I'm surprised.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of it.
Because it makes so much sense. Like, especially to me, now when you explained it, I feel like people in prison, could use so much guidance. People who are at nursing homes alone, so that nobody deserves to die alone, regardless of what you did in life. So I feel like this should be everywhere. Yeah. And when you said about what really stuck with me when you explained what it is, was the elaborate or like the customs for death in the Victorian era. I feel like maybe it has simmered out in the West, but in Asia, like, it's alive and well. Like, I remember when my relatives would die, and we would have like a parlor. Basically, it will, like, the house will turn into not a party place, but like where people would gather and commemorate memories. Well, pictures would be everywhere, and the dead would wear the best Sunday clothes or the best jewelry. So that just reminded me of that, and I feel like I'm glad that that's alive and well somewhere else in the world, because because in the West I feel like, well, what do you call it, cremate, and then that's it, right?
What's everybody's like how would you guys want to be laid to rest? Like, cremated or buried? Or you look so ready to answer.
I have a not weird answer for that one.
Good.
To go to a body farm.
What is that?
So I'm sure they have like an official name now, but I know them as the pig people. And these are, they do research on body decomposition. And the whole thing is to be able to find clandestine graves. So if somebody is murdered and dumped in a forest, they'll be able to, based on, the different like terrain and environment, they'll be able to find the body in a more scientific and very like targeted approach. So that's
such a sweet
where I'd like to go.
You want to keep helping people even after you're gone. That's so sweet.
Yeah, and honestly, like, so, because everybody's like, donate your body to science. There's a really good book by Mary Roach called Stiff, and it's about what happens to human cadavers, essentially, within like the system. And it really turned me off from that, because you can literally be used, you have no say. So you could really be used for something that you morally you don't approve of morally yourself. And you could be used to like tobacco companies could be like, it's fine, we're fine. See, this guy's fine. So it's just, it's a different alternative to that, in the sense that it's still helpful. It's just in a different way.
Yeah.
I've heard about people who make you into it, almost like the fertilizer for a tree. Is that a thing too, right?
Yes. You can also be
nice.
composted.
Yeah.
Human compost.
Yeah. That'd be nice to be a tree. But with me, I still would want to have the whole elaborate sending off. But I probably would want to be cremated and maybe scattered somewhere, like my favorite place. I still have to figure that out. How about you, Jess?
I thought you were going to steal my tree idea, because that's what I've been saying for a long time. Is I just compost. I want to be buried with a willow tree. Like, I just want to provide shade for people, because I think about it, and I'm like, I'm the baby of the family. I don't have any kids, so I don't really imagine anybody would really be like actively visiting my gravesite, unless like you knew, like, hey, that's where Jessica's tree is going to go, like, or grow. Like, the people know where it is. I'd have to do research on it, because I don't feel like you can just be buried anywhere with a tree. Yeah.
So, but there are places. Again, I'm speaking more from like the Canadian perspective, but I'm very sure that this applies to the States as well.
I'll just ship my fertilizer to Canada, and you just bury me somewhere nice.
Right.
I trust you.
You can't just be buried anywhere, and it can't just be in like your backyard. But there are, especially now, there's been a rise in natural cemeteries. So you basically are not embalmed. You're wrapped in a linen or a cotton or like some sort of compostable cloth, in a shroud, or like even a wicker basket, and then they just put you in the ground, and that's it. Maybe you get a rock. Like, there's no markers. There's none of that. So, and if you wanted a tree, you could have a tree. Like, there's options there. but it's more sustainable because now, like, so you get embalmed, you get put in the ground, you're in this very fancy casket, and the whole point is to preserve the body, which it's never going to be preserved forever anyway. It will break down. And then all of that embalming fluid and all of that will get leached into the soil, and then you're just destroyed. Like, they are cemeteries, as beautiful as they are major ecological disasters.
Yeah.
It's not good. So, and that's part of where this comes in, is that most people just assume that you have to, but there's alternatives, there's other options. And I think especially now, like, this younger generation coming in is starting to be, because they have to, we don't have a choice, more conscious of the environment and what we're doing to it, and how to better preserve what we have. And funerals are so expensive, so people just don't have the money now to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars on the caskets and the headstones, and eventually we run out of space. So
I feel like it's a double reason for our generation to be like, well, I don't have money because you guys set up your generation, and I'm now forced to take care of the environment because also you know your guys' generations also get up. So yeah, I want to be a tree and be less burden for the family behind you, and also like peace with you and helping the environment. I feel like a lot of people are going to be really open to that idea, that's for sure. I'm very curious, so when you are in a program with a client, how does religion and their cultures and traditions play into the process?
So very, very important. I am very upfront with, I don't know everything, so I would rely very heavily on the client and their family in terms of what is it you're looking for. But we are very big on like vigils and ritual and ceremony, because those are the things that stick with people. It's not the things per se. Sometimes it is, but it's not always the things. But and especially a lot of these things you can do with the person while they're still with us, and then you have these memories. So things like legacy projects, these are huge. So it's it could be like a recipe book, or I don't know, anything that's important to the family that you can have as a token, and just really like solidify the legacy of that person. Photo books, they have them write in a journal, and like things like that while they're still alive. And then also vigils. So a vigil can be anything. Like, most people think vigils are like you light all the candles and then you just sit around the bed and do weird chants. That's not really I mean, it can be if that's what they want, but vigils are really just dedicated, focused time for that individual, whether they're still with us or not still with us. And that's a really good opportunity to really bring in that religious aspect. So if they're Catholic or Christian, then you can bring in Bible verses. You can, whatever is important to that person and their family, then we figure out a way to make it work.
Do you know, or have you noticed of specific groups of people that push away this kind of idea of having a death doula?
I wouldn't specify it necessarily to a specific like culture or religion. I think in general, people hear death doula and they're like, what is that? That's so morbid, that's so weird. Like, why? And so I think the biggest obstacle right now is just getting people to understand, because we, like the Western culture, we don't talk about death. It's not a thing. Nobody addresses it. I was lucky enough that my mom is just as morbid as I am. So we have had these conversations, although sometimes I'm still too much for her, and she's like, I can't handle you right now.
But that's the thing though, is see, like what us, like the kinds of people that we are, because we are so open to talking about death and morbid and maybe even the gore and horror, like we're classified as like these kinds of people. Like we're almost kind of like boxed in, wherein maybe we just have better understanding. But I think it's a point of opportunity to let people know that it's okay to talk about death. I
think it's important. I think we have to talk about death, because it's human nature to be afraid of things that we don't understand or don't know, and so we sweep things under the rug and then stress about it forever. Like, it doesn't, that's not helpful. I mean, it's psychologically, you go to a therapist, you talk about your problems, you feel better. That's like the cycle. Hypothetically, that's how it's supposed to work. But so by just kind of like ignoring it and sweeping it under the rug, and we don't talk about it, and I don't want to talk about what the end of my life is going to look like, then you're stuck because you don't get to have a say. You don't get that additional. And like, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that the medical system doesn't provide dignity to the people that use it. The problem is that, especially right now, people are overwhelming the system. The medical system is so overwhelmed with everything, the dying and otherwise, that they don't have the time to dedicate to making sure that this person is getting absolutely everything that they need at their end of life. So even something as simple as pain management, they're not going to sit there and have a conversation with this person in terms of, okay, what does pain management look like to you? Because one of the examples that we got while I was in my course was somebody says, okay, I don't want any pain management because I want to be lucid and present and with my family for as long as possible. And it's like, okay, but there's alternatives. Can we talk about the alternatives? What if we could manage the pain in a different way without drugs? Let's do meditations. Or what if we can kind of balance the drugs and then the effects and see how that goes? Do you want absolutely and if you do want pain management, do you want absolutely no pain? Is there a level of pain that you're willing to tolerate? Like, these are the questions that aren't being had. And so they don't get the opportunity to have a say in how they die.
That is so true. I mean, because I remember I grew up in the Philippines, and because we're a Catholic country, so people are lucky that when they're in their deathbed, like a priest or a pastor would come and like have a vigil or a prayer or even a mass. But I'm not sure that in other countries that there's even a service like that. At least here in the United States, maybe if you're Catholic and you're in a Catholic hospital, but yeah, I'm not sure that that's a service that the hospitals usually provide at all.
Usually.
I think I don't know that hospitals necessarily have chapels anymore, because I know they used to, at least in
It just depends on what hospital it is.
Yeah,
but the family will have their priest or pastor or whatever religious leader, they can come in and have whatever vigil.
but it is on the family now.
We kind of dealt with that with my uncle passing when I was younger, but it was very very quick. Like, the priest came into this room, he said a prayer with us, and then it was over in like 5 minutes. Like, the priest was not there to like walk my uncle through his dying, make sure that he was comfortable, like none of that. That's why your job stood out to me so much. And like, you could just be there to be an advocate for someone, to make sure that their last moments on this earth are as great as they can possibly be. I think that's beautiful. I love it.
Because especially the people that learn they're dying and they have, let's say, 2 months left, like, you ask the patient, you wouldn't really have the knowledge per se of like, what things do I want to discuss with my family, or what do I want to do now? Like, you're gonna get caught up in like pain, so I feel like having somebody advocate for me is very important. Everybody should have it,
and we're there for the family too. Like, it's not just for, obviously my focus and my attention is on the dying client, but I mean, unless you've seen somebody in active dying before, if you experience that for the first time with going in like blind, it's not a comfortable thing to watch. There are noises, there are smells, there are things going on, and it's stressful. So to have somebody there who has already gone through the process and just being able to sit with the family and say, this is normal, this is what it's supposed to be like. A lot of people don't know the last sense to go is your hearing. So talk to them. And a lot of times, like, you start talking to them, read them a story, and they'll calm right down. Or sing them a song, or if there's music that they like. And these are the kinds of conversations that we're having. It's like, what kind of music do you like? Do you want to hear things? Do you want to be quiet? Do you want nature sounds? Do you want family there to read to? Like, these are all things that we can discuss prior to going into it, so that we can make sure that they have the experience that they're wanting.
This brings me back to Jess's curiosity earlier, that once you do it a lot or you do it enough, does it change how you feel about the process or like death itself? I
don't think it would ever. I think each person is unique, each situation is unique, and that's part of why it's so hard to explain what this is because everybody has different needs. So I'm not going to sit on a deathbed with every person. I'm not going to
XYZ.
Yeah, like it's not going to go the same way every single time. The timelines are different. The process is different. Even within like the active dying process, everybody has different things that happen. So I think as long as I'm still feeling that, at least I can make those last moments what they want it to be. As long as I'm still holding on to that, I don't think it changes it for me. Because it's something, we're all going to do it. It's the great equalizer. Everybody's going to go at some point. So how can I make that better for somebody else? And that's really all it is.
That's something else that confused me, especially like I think Jack, you brought up how people get weirded out about like people like us that are not afraid to talk about death, dying, gory, terrible things that most people don't want to confront on a regular basis. But with death, we're all going to face it. But like, I just don't understand like the weird stigma, how people look at us talking about death and being so weirded out by it. But with agoraphobia, that's like the whole thing. It's just to be like little, like, go drive to the gas station, do this, like put yourself in those uncomfortable positions until you're okay with accepting this thing. And death is something that we all have to accept.
Yeah.
I think
like
part of
we're
it
all
is,
in denial.
well, I think part of it is in order to grow as a person, you need to be uncomfortable. And those of us who are on those growth journeys understand that.
It's the lobster theory. You ever heard the lobster theory?
No.
No? Lobsters, so when they grow inside their shell and they get really, really uncomfortable and they have to shed their shell and then they have to go hide for like a month before their shed comes back. I think it was some rabbi that was talking about this. Somebody sent me this video a long time when I was like in a really super depressed mood. And they're like, you're just being a lobster. And they know how much I love seafood. So they're like, you don't go to the restaurant and look for the dinky little lobster. You go in there and you look for the biggest one in the tank. And just know that biggest lobster went through so much pain and so much hurt to get to that big old glorious point.
This just gave me a deja vu because I'm not sure if I talked to you about this, Jess, but I think you brought this up at some point, or somebody brought this up at some point, the lobster theory. And it just went dark because I said that's how soft shell crabs are made when you go to a sushi shop. Because crabs are like that too. They molt. So before they grow, they harden their skin. They got harvested as a delicacy. So yeah, I know it's very dark for some people to be
You're
like,
making me hungry.
I was just trying to molt, bro, and then now you just harvested me, and now I'm a delicacy. But yeah, I totally get that. I feel like people should be more open. Or do you think that the reason why we are so open about it is because maybe because to me, I feel like I'm so open about death and the gore and the horror because I've went through so much in my life. And do you think that has something to do with, almost kind of like opening up yourself to these ideas?
I think so. People don't like being uncomfortable unless they have to. And so those of us who have built-in trauma and have to see a therapist because we get sad sometimes, we have to do the work, because if we don't do the work, we can't exist.
It's like you get frozen. It's like you're frozen in time almost.
Yeah. And so I think that's why a lot of us are so open to it, is just because we've already had to be uncomfortable. What's a little bit more uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And then you start talking about it and you realize, oh, it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Like, yeah, it sucks. It's not great, but it's going to happen regardless. And there's beauty in that. Like, I don't want to live forever. I don't know about you guys. There are days. It's like, I see and that would be fine. But like, there's beauty in that finiteness. And I think that's, people forget that part. That if it was just going to last forever, then it doesn't, then what's it for? What are we doing it for? What's the point?
It doesn't make it special. If it lasts forever and ever, then there's no special parts.
And we don't know what's out there after. Like, it could be better, but we don't know. I doubt it.
Okay, so this is a good question. So so when you die, like, what is your personal belief on it? To me, I feel like you just like a machine, like you turn off and then that's it, your consciousness is gone, and then there's no really like afterlife.
I'm of that vein, only because I'm such an analytical, scientific mind that I can't say anything else because I've never experienced it. Do I like desperately want to meet a ghost? Yes, like so bad. like put me in a haunted house right now and I want it. And so funny sidebar, me and my best friend, we have a haunting pact. So if whoever goes first, we have to go to the other person's house, and we have very specific, like, I'm going to open very specific drawers and take a spoon, and then she'll know, like, it's real. We're good.
We should do that, Jess.
We should. My boyfriend is convinced that I have a ghost that follows me. I'm going to be the only woo-woo one out of the two of you. I do think that there may be something after death, and it's because I have this weird story. So my great papa, he hated kids. Don't know why, but he hated all the kids except for me, and he spoiled the living daylights out of me. He passed away when I was like 5, but this man bought me so many clothes. I had clothes until I was like 10. But like there was always, my mom would have weird dreams that like I would go to her in the middle of the night and say, I'm gonna go live with great papa now, and she would like freak out and come check on me to make sure that I was like still alive. And then the weirdest instance, which makes me believe that there may be something attached or following me, is I had 2 friends in high school. Neither of them knew each other. One I hung out with when I was like a freshman and she was a junior, and then the other one was a sophomore when I was a senior. And they both stayed at my house separately. Both said that they were very sensitive to this stuff, and this was before I was even like, I was raised very hardcore Christian, so there was no like, there's no ghost, there's no none of that. That's woo-woo. So they both told me, they're like, we see this figure walk down the stairs, turn on the lights, look in your room, and then go out the back door. They stayed multiple times, and they're like, it follows the same pattern every single night. And then my stepsister would tell me that she would see me sleepwalking, going to turn on the bathroom lights, following the same pattern that my friends had both described to me. I had reoccurring dreams of this figure that I didn't tell anyone about them until like they brought it up, and they're like, yeah, he's wearing this hat, he looks like this. I'm like, this is what I've been seeing in my dreams. So I think maybe I'm haunted, or maybe he's following me because he loves me, and I don't know. But I don't know what to think about the afterlife. But I do know about haunting, so let's go be ghost hunters.
We should do that. No, it's giving me the goosebumps because I have so many ghost stories. But for some reason, yeah, I've experienced it myself too. But for some reason, I just refuse to believe that when I die, that I don't stay and be a ghost.
Oh, I don't want to stay.
Maybe I feel special really in that way, but I feel like I'm just gonna turn off and then that's it for me. I feel like there's nothing for me to do really. But I have a lot of ghost stories, but I feel like I'm just in denial this whole time because I would just brush it off. Like even here in our house, like there's like some weird things that happen, and I'm just like, oh, that was nothing. What's the neighbor or whatever.
Again, I desperately want this to be real. Like, and like if I have to come back to Earth and stay, I'm wreaking havoc. Like I just want to be full blown spooky, slam the doors. Like I just want to scare people just because.
You'd be like, I want to go with somebody for a little bit, but then leave later.
Like I'll be like nice to like nice people, but like if I find a Karen, I'm gonna like really knock it on out. Yeah, like I'm gonna scare you. It's gonna be great. That's all I want.
Yeah, all the fun you can do.
Have you guys ever heard?
It looks fun.
Have you guys ever heard the theory of like, I forgot where this was. I think TikTok thinks that I'm very susceptible to conspiracy theories, so it pushes me the craziest ones all the time. Like I get flat Earth videos all the time, but I got this one video where this guy had this theory that like, because a lot of people say that they see like a bright light at the end, or like people who have had near-death experiences say that they see a bright light, and they had this theory that like Earth is like an energy battery, like an energy shell, and like the light is like luring you to go back into the body to create more energy for whatever's outside the world.
Oh, okay. That would be like a plot for a movie.
I know. Go to the left of the light.
That's a very common thing. So people at end of life, often when it's basically time to go, will say, oh, the people are like, they'll see people in their room, they'll see a light, they'll feel warm. And these are all very, like across the board, very common things that people experience universally.
Yeah, from all religions, all beliefs, all walks of life.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we have this thing that almost everybody experiences. Could it just be brain chemicals?
You never know.
I don't know.
Yeah, what if you actually get high before you die?
Sorry?
What if you actually get high before you die because like all the chemicals in your body and your hormones are like going crazy because you're about to die? So
you basically do. Like your body creates euphoria, which is why it's kind of funny that people are so afraid of it, is because your body literally, as it's shutting you down, it's creating chemicals to make you feel really good. So people will say like you feel really warm, and that's a lot. That often people get better before they get worse, is because your body, even though it's shutting down, it's creating like these great feelings. It's releasing all of these like chemicals, like pain management chemicals, and like all these things are going on. So that's why it's so important to have somebody there guiding through the active dying process, because like it doesn't look good. It doesn't look great.
So how do you deal with that? Like when you know this person's not gonna get better, it's just the prolonged euphoria. Like it's like a prolonged adrenaline before they die, and of course the family, they're gonna be happy and they'll rejoice because the client's getting better. What do you even do, or what do you even say when that happens?
That's education. So educating around the dying process is kind of like my favorite thing, which sounds really weird, but it's so misunderstood. I guess, who am I talking to? But it's such a misunderstood process, because again, we don't talk about it here. So I'm very passionate about that very specifically, because as the people that get left behind, you now have to process what you just saw. And a lot of people want to be there for their family members, not realizing that there will be leftover feelings about what you just experienced, because they're not experiencing it, because most of them is no longer here, but you are, because you're watching it happen. And part of that is managing expectations for when, all of a sudden grandpa is up and eating and having a great day, and knowing that that's just his body,
oh my goodness,
preparing for what's about to happen.
Wait, so you tell them this might happen, like you said, expectations like that.
You have to have the hard conversations. You can't. The hard thing about this is managing expectations, but maintaining the hope for the person dying. So I don't deal in absolutes, if that makes sense. But just saying, like, instead of saying something along the lines of like, oh great, they're doing better, yay, let's celebrate, it's like, okay, well, I'm glad they're having a good day. Let's remember, because ideally we've had these conversations prior in terms of setting expectations and what they're about to go through. Let's remember what we talked about. Let's be so excited that they're having a good day, and let's hold on to that and be prepared that this very likely will change. So it's not necessarily just like, you idiot, how dare you be excited that they're having a good day. No, it's not about that. It's celebrating the good days. Yeah, like you don't want to tell them something that isn't going to happen, and you know it's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate the good days when they happen. Yeah. Exactly.
And I see it happen all the time. I hear the same stories. He was just walking around yesterday because he got better, and then the next day they pass away. Yeah. And
the hardest one is when they pass. The family leaves and they pass. That's a really common one. They'll hold on until the family leaves and then they pass, and that's a tougher conversation, because then they say, oh my god, I missed it, and it's like, no, maybe they just wanted to go alone. Privately. Like, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be the negative. It could just be they didn't want you to see it. They didn't want you to have that. They needed you to go. So it's a lot of just like changing the narrative a little bit.
See, I'm learning so much. Like, before talking to you, I didn't even know that there's a stage like that you get better, but it's like it's just almost kind of like adrenaline, or like your home. Yeah, that is so crazy. And see, that is so important that people know about the process. And I'm surprised that not a lot of people ask for you guys' help. Like,
they don't know, right? And again, by bringing us in, you're now accepting what's happening. Or a lot of people have that mentality of like, if I just talk about it or acknowledge the death, it's not going to happen. Like, or by talking about it, then we're asking for it. Like, we're bringing it in, because there are a lot of cultures that are like that, where if you say the thing, then you're manifesting the thing. So that's kind of a difficult kind of wall to break through, because you have to kind of be like, no, it's not like that. It's just You know, I want you to be comfortable, and I need to know what makes you comfortable.
Good question. Do you like freelance basically, or do you almost like kind of like set up with a specific like nursing home or like?
Good question.
I know.
Yeah, most would be considered freelance. I haven't looked into what that would look like in terms of going in with like a business.
I think freelance would be better because then you have the freedom to be yourself and to do all the things that other people want you to do. I got so in depth with this because, like I said, I brought it up while I was upstairs with my boyfriend's niece, and she works in a nursing home, so she deals with people that are actively dying or getting close to the end, and she'll constantly come home and be like, it's so sad to see that I can only do XYZ for these people because this is all that my company allows me to do for them, and she wants to do so much. Like it's sad. That's why I started looking up your profession, and I got really interested. She got really interested.
And a lot of the people that I was in the course with, not a lot, but some of them were like palliative nurses who just want to know how to navigate the system better, and how can they advocate for their own patients better. So that's another option in terms of if you're already in the end-of-life care industry from a medical standpoint. This can just help with having those conversations, navigating the complicated questions, knowing what kinds of questions and knowledge gaps happen when you're explaining, because a lot of times the doctor will come in and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how much you're getting, this is what it's going to do. And then you look at the patient and they're like glazed over because they have no idea what just happened, and they're still trying to figure out what's going on. And so just slowing down the process and saying, do you understand? And if you don't understand, how can I help you understand? And even just so much as just like being able and willing from a medical standpoint to slow that conversation down and make sure that they understand all their options would be such an improvement to what's happening right now.
I think it takes a very special person to be in that profession, because I mean, I'm Filipino, so my family expected me to be a nurse. I mean, what else, right? But I actually started the process to become one. So I did a certified nurse assistant certificate, and when we did our on-the-job training at a nursing home, that was when I knew that I won't be able to do it, because like Jess, like I'm an emotional sponge. Like I would just absorb all the sadness and the darkness in the room, and I take it home, and then it affects me so much, because in the nursing homes, you'll be with patients that have never been visited by their family for years, and they would tell you, and you feel like so much sadness, like these people should be home with their families, kind of thing. So that's how I knew I like to help people. I want to help others, and I want to take care of others, but probably not in this capacity, because otherwise it will drive me crazy. How do you process your emotions?
Therapy?
Yeah.
A lot of different ways. Again, I see it from a very different lens. So I'm not looking at it as like, yes, you create a relationship with your client, because how can you not? This is such an emotional and difficult time. And so you gain those relationships. But again, I have to lean on that. I'm doing what I need to do to make that end process amazing for them. So as long as I feel at the end of the day that I did everything that I could to make them feel comfortable, and I know that as they were transitioning into whatever's next, that they were comfortable and happy and had somebody there with them, I did what I needed to do. And like that came from. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I said that is a source of fulfillment for you, that you were able to help.
Yeah, and just leaning on that knowledge is really what kind of keeps me going. Because my grandmother had dementia, and so I saw it. She was in a long-term facility, and you see the ones that don't get visited, and the impacts of that, and what that does to them, and how much quicker they go, because they're why are they even here? So yeah, just knowing that there's somebody there can help.
See, I really feel like not a lot of people are open to talking about these things, and I'm glad that I found friends in Jess and Raf, and then you now too, because it's like when I know that I always say like, and I just darkened up the room because that's how I feel when people have a different reaction to something that I said, and like, oh, I did it again, I darkened the room.
Oh.
But I feel like, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be something normal that we talk about. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of death cafes?
Tell me more.
If you need to let your dark out, I believe that there are opportunities in the States as well as in Canada. And it's literally just events that are organized where you can go and you talk about death. That's, you go, you drink coffee or have drinks or have whatever the organization is planning, and you talk about death. And it's not a therapy session. It's not meant to be like to help people through grief, but it's just you go and you have what we're doing right now. We're having a full conversation about like different
stages of feeling.
Yeah, for people like us who like to have those conversations. So that's another thing too, if you don't want to get into necessarily the death doula side of things, but still want to have those conversations, find one close to you. I'm sure there's websites and things there's Facebook groups that you can find as well. Some of them are online. And it's just a nice way to find your people who will get dark with you.
Yeah, because
That was
you don't really, it's not deliberate that you just speak your mind because that's how your mind works, but then a lot of people wouldn't take it the same way as you do. So that's how the friction. Yeah, but when you said about death cafes, I feel like I could possibly incorporate something like it because I just came home from Comic Palooza, and we're talking about having renting a room, me and the other Houston game designers, so that we can showcase our games as local designers in one space. And I was thinking like, oh yeah, I want my corner to be like really dark and have like that kind of ambience. And I feel like maybe that could be not like conversations about death per se, but maybe like, I don't know, I'll figure it out, but a place to get your dark out is the perfect way that you said it, because that's mainly also the reason why I'm so passionate about the game, because it's serial killer, but my main focus really in the background is so that people can talk about the darker stuff without any judgment, because you create an environment for it. Because I know that people like us, we always get looked at as weird in the outside world. And so if there is like an environment you can create and actually have fun, get your dark out, and that's my ultimate goal for the game. And I feel like these things should be normal, but it's not. So I feel like it's up to us to educate more people and coax them to like speak their mind, I guess. And Jess, you had a question earlier? Sorry, I keep talking over you.
No, you're good. We all have lots to talk about. I was just gonna try and brighten up Jack by downing on me by saying something else that piqued my interest about the death doula, because I've always wanted to help people, and I was a bartender for 9 years and I left because I'm not helping people be better, I'm helping people be worse. But like, I developed some really good relationships with those people and I cared about them, so I branched off from bartending to cleaning houses. And a lot of my clients, because I would bartender in the daytime or at like Elks Lodge or VFWs, and that's where a lot of like the elderly people would hang out, and so they'd hire me to clean their houses. And then they'd refer me to friends of friends of friends. And like, I felt so happy to be able to help people that actually needed it. But then there's some mean old ladies out there. And I don't know why, when I was like digging down the rabbit hole on like what a death doula does for people, like something in my brain was almost like, this would be perfect because you get to help people, but it's at the end, so they don't have that much time to disappoint you. Like, and I felt so bad that thought went through my head. Like, you can help people, but they're not going to be around long enough to like hurt your feelings. Maybe they will.
You have one dose. You could have more.
I know. That's the other thing that would suck. I'm gonna get into this and then pop back on. Be like, Bree needs to come back on. There's 12 ghosts following me around.
Exorcist. I don't know. I've passed the test.
I told my boyfriend's niece, I was like, I think I'd only want to be, if I could pick and choose, which I couldn't. Be a death doula for witches and hippies. Just those two.
I mean, it hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps. It helps to niche down. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm still in this belief that we have you on the podcast because it's just things you never think about, professions you never known, and now I'm realizing like this is so much bigger than a profession. I feel like it has to be it's industry now, but it has to be bigger than that. These conversations have to be incorporated in hospitals, like everywhere, literally make it available. Suicide rate in Asia is rising because people just keep working until they couldn't anymore. And I feel like if those people would have had access to these conversations, I feel like maybe they would have a different outcome of what happened to them in their lives. That is just a very random thought that came to my mind. I'm like, there are so many things. There are things in this world that are so underappreciated, underrated. Yeah.
It does shift your perspective.
Mhm.
So even going through the coursework, I ended up making some very big life changes, not just because of the course, but because of therapy also. And essentially just like blew up my life because I realized like I needed to be we sat there and we did a legacy project, and I looked at my legacy project and I was like, I don't love this, and I don't like how I feel right now. And so that's one of the things that people don't realize, and the beauty of that experience is, unless you've experienced death in some capacity, you really take for granted what life is, and it's easier to work those extra hours and to just kind of like put what you want aside and just, okay, one more day, a few more hours, and it's fine. And I'm now at a point where I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not willing to just be okay, not happy, like
not thriving.
Yeah,
like it's
Thriving,
not
and then there's thriving. You want to be thriving.
Exactly. Like I don't want to just go through it. I want to live it, and I want to experience everything that I can, and I want to learn everything that I can. And so that's from these conversations and being able to say like, okay, it ends at some point. I don't know when it's going to be, but I have to make the conscious decision every single day. And sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes I don't want to live what I'm living, and sometimes it's just like, what have I done? But in the end, you focus on the end result, and it has completely changed my, like, if you told me 6 months ago that I would be on a podcast, I'm pretty sure even Jack, I like responded with like, I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect any sort of response. I just kind of like entered in information, was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, this is a dream come true actually, because I've dreamt about it, but I never had the courage or the confidence to be on a podcast, because I just went through life having people tell me that, oh, nobody wants to hear about that, or like with, especially when people talk over you like just constantly every day because you're soft-spoken, and they think, so I feel like whatever ideas I have to shut down because they don't really matter. And when we started this, even on the first episode, it was just me and Jess, and we were like, oh my god, I feel so much better that we were talking, like even just having a conversation. So yeah, no, definitely I would choose this over some kind of career that would enslave me, because that is my struggle too every day, is the social norms, right? Like, oh, you're literally not doing anything, so you're a bum, basically. Like, oh, you're not making that much money this month, so you're a failure. Like, those kinds of thoughts are constantly in my mind. And I've, like, when you said that, I was like, you know what, she's right. And we all know that. Even the people who are workaholics, they know it, but it's so easy to postpone your own needs so that you can show up to the world and be like, yeah, I'm one of you guys, I'm normal, and that's a struggle.
Not
Like,
only that,
how is your experience, Jess?
it's so hard to watch, especially even like with jobs like bartending. I bartended for 9 years, and that, as much as I grew to absolutely despise what I was doing, watching people like develop alcoholism, watching people totally screw up their lives because they started to drink so much, knowing that no matter what advice they would ask me in their drunken stupor, that they were never going to take it. It was amazing money. It was money that I knew I would never make anywhere else. And it was hard to step away from that, especially like I grew up poor. I worked so hard, and just thinking like, if I step away from this, like, am I going to be back to like scrounging for coins in the couch to take a bus somewhere? Like, I don't want to go back to that, but I don't want to be stuck in this. And it's hard. So thriving or surviving. And if you're stuck too, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like when Bree said like the days where you don't even want to be alive, I totally get that. And I think with the whole bed rotting trend, if you choose bed rotting, I do this a lot. I'll choose bed rotting, and I'll lay in bed all day because I just don't. It hurts to be awake. It hurts to be alive. But I feel the next day, even if I still feel like garbage for not doing anything the day before, it's still a win because I'm still here and I still have the capability to try and do better the next day or the next week. Sorry,
no, because see, this podcast is where we actually get to have these conversations that we don't get judged for. Because even at home, you know, we're like, if you talk about these things, like, people get worried. They'd be like, are you okay? I'm like, no, we're okay. It's just, I guess some people are just, I don't know how they are happy all the time, but you know, it's not permanent. That's for sure. Yeah, it's a struggle, and I'm really thankful that I found this. That because Jess and I were never even met in real life, right? Nope. And we just started this project together. and now I'm like, oh my God, I have somebody to talk to you about when I'm bed rotting, because I get those two. And it's so hard. Like, you have a business to run, but like, my spirit is somewhere else right now. So yeah, it helps to talk about it, and that's why I feel like I'm hoping that people would look at serial killer as something that it could be something else. Like, yeah, it's a fun, creepy game, but it could be a way for you to just talk about things that happen to you that you never really talk to people about,
or get your dark thoughts out.
I hope it opens. I mean, basically, like, I hope it opens you up to experiences such as having real conversations such as this. Yeah. Well, Bree, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sure. Are you ready to play?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was born ready.
See, like earlier we were talking like, oh, and then so we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll have casual questions, and then we'll play. Of course, it wasn't going to be a casual conversation.
I told you, it never follows rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
That's what is not a casual conversation in my personal experience, because then everybody has a story. So even in those like short conversations, it's like, oh, I have a family member and this was their experience and this is where this could be helpful. So it's never just like so I do this thing. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, right.
It's a conversation for sure.